Hi, I'm Sarah Gleason. I'm a practice owner in Goondiwindi, which is a rural town in Queensland, and have a few other hats as well, working at the hospital and kids and just a pretty busy life. We have approximately 20 staff at the Goondiwindi Medical Centre, as well as a long-standing registrar teaching program to add new junior doctors to our team, which means regular employment of our registrars, which they're coming through every 6 to 12 months, hopefully staying longer if they like our team. This involves onboarding and lots of paperwork to get them on board with Medicare, PBS, lots of other things. And this is a really time-heavy role for our practice manager, and one I didn't probably fully appreciate until I sat down with her as part of this project, simply how much work it was to be able to onboard these registrars. And this was the right time to reach out to EDS because we had 4 new doctors starting, and the sheer volume of work and needed to be tightened up. And we needed to really streamline some processes so that we could make this easier for a practice manager so she could get back to doing the work that she was really being paid to do rather than lots and lots of administration.
So I'm the practice manager here at Goondiwindi Medical Centre. So in a nutshell, I do all of the behind the scenes work so that the rest of our 20 plus team can focus on doing their jobs with the patients. So a huge part of this is actually the HR component, so recruiting, onboarding, record keeping, and ensuring that everybody is up to date with their professional requirements. So taking a part of the mental load from them as well, keeping track of that. And then just to keep me on my toes, the processes for this are different for the doctors, the nurses, and then the administration groups. In recent years, I've been spending a lot of time over the initial days going through orientation programs with new starters. So trying to jam all of the important information into a session and making sure I didn't miss anything was taking a huge chunk of my week, and not to mention how many mental tabs I had open with where I was up to with each individual. We work with 2 general practice colleges when recruiting GP registrars. This means forms, and more forms. From the college-specific forms and the Medicare forms, the process has always meant numerous emails back and forth for each applicant. And then, of course, there's always one form I would forget. So before Empire, as you can probably tell, it was very clunky, manual, and very reliant on me. I would complete each form as much as I could. So ideally, the applicant would only need to sign the form once confirming I put in everything correctly. So some of the forms were the same, but a lot of the forms were slightly different depending on which college the registrar was with or how they wanted to plan their time with us. It's time to fix this process now because we recognise just how much time was being spent on it.
Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm the owner-operator of Empire Virtual Support. I've had the pleasure of working with both Sarah and Alicia at Goondiwindi Medical Centre to develop and implement operational strategies that align with their business vision. GMC is very similar to a lot of businesses where they have an awesome resource who runs the show, knows everything, juggling all the balls, reliable, efficient. But if they are to take a day off or they're sick or they move on to another role, things will very quickly grind to a halt. So part of what we were doing was coming in to support them with processes and systems to ensure this key person risk was somewhat reduced. So 2 of their goals was firstly, they wanted to implement an e-learning program so that access to and tracking of completion was made much more simple. And they wanted to do all of this within their Microsoft existing subscription, which does present a unique set of challenges, but we completely understood the rationale for that, for keeping things on one platform and trying to control costs. Another goal that we had was their onboarding when we came along was quite clunky, but they knew that they wanted it to be better, much more slick and impressive. As a regional medical centre, they want to be able to attract talent from other regions, and they were very wise in knowing that systems were going to be part of this, because people from metropolitan regions may expect a more slick, professional onboarding experience. Again, doing all of this within the confinement of Microsoft, which presented a really unique challenge, but we definitely have got some good outcomes going.
We decided to work with Empire, I'd previously engaged with them personally, having my own VA, and I was really impressed with their systems and processes and the fact that they just really understood that the brief I had given them personally and our learning system. So there is a lot of structure to general practice training, and we needed to make sure that particular content had been seen, and we needed to be able to check that, and we didn't have a good process for that. We had documents and learning pieces stored in a variety of different places across 4 different partners, some on Dropbox, some on desktop, some on a server. It was a bit of a mess, and we really needed some help trying to bring that all back together to one place. So we had sort of one source of truth for all of our documents, and we didn't waste time trying to find things. That was our original brief to Empire. And once we sat down with Charlie and she went through the process for our registrars coming on board, which I was very impressed with, the level of detail that she had gone into to understand our business, because I understand it might have been the first time she'd worked with a rural medical practice, that the string was really pulled to identify a whole bunch of other inefficiencies that we probably knew were there but didn't realise how much of a problem that was. And so what became an initial request for, we just want you to make us a beautiful learning management system, became let's make sure that we can have a really smooth process for our onboarding for the future, and also to develop a learning management system that we could manage in-house. We'd given Charlie the brief of trying to work within our Microsoft 365 suite. This was primarily at the time around some simplicity, but also around some costing to try and make the most of that software while we had it. It sounded like a pretty fiddly task really, but we appreciated that she'd come back to us on a few things to say, this is not the best in field, this is what we should try, yes, we can make these things work. So I was really impressed with the way that she was able to work within those constraints, because I could see that it wasn't an easy task. This sort of process for us was really important as a rural site. We're having to compete against lots of other metro practices, and if we want to be able to attract high quality staff, then we need to have a really slick process which reflects our business. And our hope for the future is that then we'll roll out these processes and these systems for our reception and our nursing recruitment in the future, because the foundational work has been done now.
So as a practice manager, I spend a lot of time on administration tasks. So obviously it's part of my job, but it's just harder than it needs to be. Whilst we thought we knew that we wanted a professional orientation package that was in an electronic format, we had no idea just how much time was being sunk into the manual components of the whole HR life cycle. It was confronting to me reading the list of all the steps I had to take from the application through to the end of the employment or an applicant. It justified why my to-do list never really got any smaller. Initially, we were hoping to have Empire help us optimize how we store, share, and track learning content, so orientation package. Once we got into it though, we found the overall life cycle of team members needed an overhaul. We learned that we could avoid all the double handling, manual duplicated work within Microsoft, and with the help of a few extra tools, between having practice logins, hospital logins, government system logins, and college logins, we weren't very keen on having to teach another platform. So as we'd recently moved over to M365, we were keen to find solutions within our existing framework. Amazingly, Charlie and her team listened and made this happen.
So for GMC's first goal, they were looking at implementing a more robust e-learning system. However, they didn't want to invest in a full e-learning platform because that wasn't required. So for that, we were looking at using Microsoft Lists, which is quite an unknown, unused part of Microsoft, so that we could allocate lists to each new starter, and then it links through to the various learning materials. It can group it by job title. We can track when it was assigned, if it's being completed. So we can, build out most of those functions of an e-learning platform on a much simpler, smaller level, but it's keeping it within the skill set and cost of Microsoft, which GMC already has. The biggest, I think, impact was on their onboarding process. It was kind of, when you pull a thread, you discover you know, this is not the only challenge. There are all these other opportunities to make this process better. We moved all of their forms from, you know, they were just paper Word forms into Microsoft Forms, bit of a no-brainer. But the main win there is it meant that the data that we were getting from onboarding new team was already in the Microsoft ecosystem, so it could be piped into other areas of the ecosystem. So it could go into Microsoft Lists, it could go into SharePoint and OneDrive, etc. And this was really valuable and important, because that's something I learned in the medical profession. When you're applying for new jobs, there are, I think it's like 20 forms that you have to fill out with all of your details multiple times over and over. So by piping this data through the Microsoft system, we were then able to use a combination of Microsoft's native Power Automate and a third party to pre-populate loads of these forms for them, so that they then only had to sign, rather than, you know, saying to someone, welcome on board, here's 20 forms you've got to fill out. So that definitely made it much more efficient. We also digitized other parts of onboarding, such as automating notifications to third parties that need to know that, you know, doctors are coming on board, digitizing contracts and signatures, and then using that as a trigger point to launch automations for other things to happen. So that it was really removing how hands-on the practice manager needed to be. So reducing not only the key person risk and reliance on Alicia, but also her workload, so she was able to, you know, focus on other more important stuff in the practice.
I've had some discussions with our practice manager about this process, and we've been really impressed with the way that Empire have dealt with us. We were appreciative of the level of detail they would give us on where they're up to on the project, and also about our time that had been used and the costs to date. And that really made a difference for us as a small business to feel like we had a level of control over that. Now we can see that these processes are automated from when someone first indicates an interest to work in our practice, and from when we are actually onboarding them, to automate and integrate all of these processes that completes all the paperwork for them, automatically fills out PDFs, saves our practice manager just so much time, which was part probably of our secondary goal that we realised once I realised how much time she was actually spending on this, which as a business owner, it's hard to know about every single detail, especially if you're not trying to micromanage. What's really helpful now is with our e-learning platform is I can see where our registrars are up to. I can check in who's done what. I can update things in real time, because obviously medicine there's a lot of change even from semester to semester in terms of guidelines. So having one source of truth, having a central document that our senior doctors can edit and update. If there's one small problem, we can just jump in there and fix that in terms of links or in terms of updated guidelines. So we're really, that's been wonderful. We've had really great feedback from our registrars. They don't know any different, bless them. They've just walked into this system now that we've spent an abundance of time on. But they think it's great, and they love that they can look it up anywhere, that it's linked to their Microsoft 365. And the irony is they wouldn't know unless they went to another practice which didn't invest all this time and money into systems, that this is a unique experience in general practice. So the other thing obviously that we've learned is that we've sort of really just scratched the surface. And Charlie did say that to us at the start, and the analogy of pulling the thread, and we sort of nodded knowingly, but it turns out she was right. And definitely share her observation that there seems to be a reluctance with spending money on operational systems and getting this back end stuff done. It's not sexy like marketing, but it's the foundation stuff of your business. And I'm really looking forward to working further on that down the track, because if you get that right, if you get that foundation right, the other stuff just works really well.
It blows my mind that not only have we digitized our contracts into a proper digital platform, but when someone signs a contract, it triggers all the other things to happen in our systems that I would do manually. Updates all of their details, creates folders, creates forms that are partially filled out with data from other forms, and I'm no longer having to copy and paste data or duplicate forms. It just kind of happens. Previously, I had a mental checklist of all the things I needed to do for onboarding, and Empire has automated a good chunk of this. I'm excited to free up some time for other initiatives at the practice. I'm excited to see what we can improve on next.
In terms of outcomes for this project, we've managed to leverage existing tools within their business with a handful of new tools which were relatively low cost but high impact and value to make their operations more contemporary, more efficient. We've reduced duplication and we've heavily reduced key person risk. So it's a really good outcome for optimized operations for GMC.
Overall, we've been really impressed with this project. It's taught us a lot. We've realised that it is important to go slow and to pace ourselves and to test these systems as we go, rather than getting too excited and trying to do it all at once. And I was very grateful for support of that sort of process and approach by Charlie and her team, not to get too excited, not to try and do it all at once, which is very hard as a terribly impatient person who just likes things fixed. So that also made us step back and really look at our processes. And now we can just get on with doing the work that we're supposed to be doing and let these systems do that hard sort of nuisance but important work in the background for us. So yeah, it's been great.
So my eyes have very much been open to what's possible. Things that I had no concept were even available. But thankfully, Empire encouraged us not to get overexcited, to test and iterate as we go, as tempting as it is to automate everything now. We would like to automate the recruitment and onboarding processes for administration and nursing staff next, so that we can get even closer to our goal of attracting and retaining staff to our beautiful town and showcasing that we are innovative.
Working with Empire has been a wonderful experience, both for me personally and professionally. It's been a formative experience for GMC, really, in terms of sorting out our processes. Personally, I really appreciated the level of detail, one that I would like to see in the work. And I think reflecting back on perhaps why we hadn't jumped in sooner to do this, I'm not the solo business owner, so I needed to have the collaborative decision of my practice partners. And at the time, we weren't really flush with cash, so we had to be really mindful about our spend. And I also had to convince my business partners that this was going to be a valuable spend of our money. And it's really just paid us back dividends now and set us up to be able to continue to make some really great foundational changes in the operations of our business.
From the start of the process, Charlie and her team really showed that they were committed to understanding our current situation and future goals. The recommendations we received demonstrated that she had listened and really got us. We started with a reasonably tight time frame for the project. Charlie was great at redirecting my attention back to the project when it was really needed. I hate to say it, but without Charlie's drive, I would have dragged the chain enough to blow our deadline. I was very impressed with both Charlie and Danielle's communication throughout the project. Urgent emails were followed up with a message, so I knew I wouldn't miss a thing, even if I wasn't keeping an eagle eye on my inbox. There are so many facets to my job, and I love that I can now focus on other areas, knowing that the process will continue being of high quality, and although I have taken a step back, I won't be blindsided with something going astray. The handover document that we received was so incredibly detailed. I felt like I was able to run with the new system, but also knew that Empire can support if I need.
GMC has signed up for a 12-month sustain and maintenance program, which we're really delighted about, because it just shows that they've realized what is possible, and that with a small amount of investment in your operations, you can continue to iterate, simplify, optimize, and just get the absolute best out of your people and your business and your tools.